Welcome to the SMS podcast. I'm here today to talk about Terrifier 3, the latest in the Cokehead trilogy from Damien Leone. So, what did I think about this one? I did the last one on the podcast. Go listen to it on Apple and Spotify. And I thought it was ass. What did I think about this one? Well, it's still ass. This one, I saw some tweets saying the pacing is better in this movie. This movie is literally 10 minutes shorter than the last one. Like, what are we doing here? What are we talking about? It's still 40 minutes too long. This movie has no reason to be 2 hours and 8 minutes. Ugh, like, what are we doing here? But yeah, let's get into it. The first scene is this cold open in which we see a family during Christmas, and this is around the same time the movie's set. It's set 5 years later than the last movie. I have no idea why. Why 5 years later? I guess it's because they shot the last movie 5 years ago. Because you could tell that movie took a long time between shooting. But yeah, we get this goofy-ass family. They get killed by Art the Clown. And apparently, Damien Leone, he's subtle now because we get a death of this little boy. You can hear the kill happening, but he doesn't show up. It's like, oh, you're subtle now? Okay, whatever you say. Then they kill the dad and mom. The dad, he gets his neck chopped. But what's so fucking stupid about this scene is that the wife is literally in the same bed and she just wakes up. She's like, oh, what's happening? This motherfucker is getting chopped up. You would have been, oh my God, somebody's getting chopped up. She just wakes up randomly. It's so fucking stupid. And then we see the mom. She gets chased downstairs. She gets chopped in the back. And then she gets chopped in the stomach. And then her arms get chopped off. And then finally it ends with her getting her head split open. And then boom, title credits. Terrifier 3. I was just sitting still in my seat. The funny thing, when I saw this movie, there was this guy sitting in front of me, and he was literally jumping the whole movie. It was crazy. I mean, this movie's not scary. Why are you jumping? I guess because of the kills. I was just sitting still the whole time. So then we cut 5 years earlier. We see Art's body. I said it got chopped off. And this cop is investigating. He's like, oh shit, I found the body. And of course, the cop gets killed by Art, and then we get this goofy scene of Art with the cop's head on top of his headless body, and it looks so goofy. So then we get the post-credit scene from the last movie, which should have been cut out. I don't even know what's in the movie. We see Chris Jericho's goofy ass. He gets instantly killed by Victoria and Art. I guess he's regenerating. He's eating the girl from the last movie. Honestly, I'm shocked they didn't show the whole birth scene again. I wouldn't be surprised, but I guess Damien Leone learned how to cut things out. Not enough, obviously, because this movie's still 40 minutes too long. After this scene, we see them go to this abandoned house, and Art just sits on a rocker, and Victoria, she looks at herself in the mirror, and obviously she looks like shit. So she bashes her head in on the mirror, and she goes to the bathtub to Hannah Baker herself with the glass. So then we come back to 5 years later, and we finally see what happened to Sienna. I assume she's been in the rehab that she was at for 5 years, but who knows? The funny thing is, the whole movie, it sounds like they're calling her Santa. I don't know if they did that on purpose or not, but who knows? So she goes to stay at her aunt's house, and she goes to her aunt, and she's like, oh my God, you remember me so much of Mom. Her cousin's there, and her cousin's so fucking nosy. She goes through her journal the whole movie. I guess there's a reason why. Then we see what happened to her little brother, that goofy ass nerd. And we see that he's in college. He has a roommate who looks like Aaron Carter before he was selling ass. And he's there with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend is literally a podcaster for true crime. So of course she's exploitative. She asks Jonathan if he could come on the podcast, and he's like, I gotta think about it. So then we see Sienna call Jonathan later, and she tells him that she's out. Then we cut to these two demolition workers. One of them is scared as fuck because it's a abandoned house. He's acting like a little bitch. And the older one is messing with them. It's pretty funny. And of course, who else is there but Art the Clown? The first one who dies is the older worker, whose name is Maurice Jackson. That comes back later in the movie. He gets stabbed in the neck by Victoria. And then we see the other guy get his face ripped off. All while this is happening, Vicky is using the piece of glass like it's a dildo, out of control. And it's funny that when I was watching this movie, there was 3 people that walked out during this scene, the first 20 minutes of the movie. That shit made no sense. What'd you think this was? It's the 3rd Terrifier movie. Like, what the fuck? That shit was funny. So after this death happens, you see Art experimenting with kills. He freezes a rat with liquid nitrogen. We see these rats the whole movie. Then we cut back to Sienna at her aunt and uncle's house. She's seeing these visions. She sees her dead friend. It's this goofy ass scene. They're eating Chinese food that looks fucking disgusting. She's just like, pass me the rice, pass me the rice. Of course, it's her dead friend. We also see her cousin being nosy as hell, going through her journal. Then we go see Art. He goes to a bar, and we see Daniel Roebuck as Santa. Fucking Clint Howard's in this movie. I didn't even know he was allowed to be in a movie that wasn't his brother's. And we see this bartender. He looks like a fake-ass John Hawkes. The whole time, the bartender's creeped out. He's like, who the fuck is this guy? Let me see your ID, pal. Even though Art looks 60 years old, like, what the fuck? You need to see his ID? Okay. So Art is, like, excited to see Santa Claus. He sits on his lap. Then they take shots. And then that's when you see Art use Maurice Jackson's ID. And the bartender's like, fuck it. Oh, well, let's take the shot. And after the shot happens, Art spits in Daniel Roebuck's face and even pisses on him. He gets kicked out. But before he gets kicked out, he shoots fake John Hawkes in the face. He then shoots Clint Howard in the head. And he ties up Daniel Roebuck. And then he freezes him with the liquid nitrogen. And then he smashes his face. He puts a carrot in his face like he's Frosty the Snowman. This was a funny kill. I mean, it dragged on so long, this scene, just like every scene in this movie. But it was a cool kill. So then we cut to Sienna at the mall with Gabby. And they're getting a Christmas present for Jonathan, I guess. While this is happening, Sienna hears the song from Clown Cafe. Then Sienna sees the Santa Claus with blood on it with the mask on. And obviously it's Art the Clown. And Art waves at her, taunting her, telling him no, that it's him. Then we see Sienna meet up with Jonathan and they're reconnecting. She asks him to come to their aunt's house, and he's like, no, I actually got a party to go to. And Sienna's like, really? That's great. And at the same time, Aaron Carter shows up, and he's like, oh shit, this is your sister? And Jonathan's like, yeah, this is my roommate, Aaron Carter. But Aaron Carter's girlfriend's with him, and she annoys the shit out of fucking Sienna. And Sienna blows her off. She's like, you know, what I've been living through these past 5 years, the trauma and the horror I've been going through. And they both leave Sienna and Jonathan. And Sienna tells him that she saw Art at the mall. And Jonathan's like, are you sure? And he tells her that they should both move on. And then Sienna's like, well, you've been writing me all these letters talking about how their dad saw visions too. And then we get this other goofy flashback of her and her dad. And this drawing that he gives her is so fucking weird. Why would anyone's dad draw their daughter as a AI-generated Wonder Woman, half naked? It's so weird. Then Jonathan asks, do you have the sword? Did you get the sword? She's like, I know where the sword is. Then we see Art at the mall, and he's giving out presents to kids. He gives out this possum plush toy. It's just so funny. And what does Art do? He sets off a fucking bomb. Like, what the fuck? He's a terrorist now, I guess? Jesus Christ. So when Sienna comes back home, she finds out that Gabby has gone through her journal. Because Gabby's like, oh, Sienna doesn't like cereal anymore. And then she's like, how'd you know that? And she's like, why'd you go through my fucking journal? And Gabby's like, so did all that shit really happen to you? And she's like, well, I guess. Not really, though. So then Sienna sees the report that a bomb went off at the mall and that somebody's describing the appearance of Art. So Sienna calls Jonathan and she begs her uncle to go pick him up. Then we see Art the Clown at Jonathan's college to go and try to kill him. But that's when we get a scene of, which is probably the best kill in the movie, we get a scene of Art the Clown killing Aaron Carter and his girlfriend in the shower. Very similar to other horror movies. It kind of reminded me of that scene in Alien Covenant where they killed Jussie Smollett in the shower. He uses a chainsaw, hacks up the girlfriend first. He is basically slamming the chainsaw on her. He cuts her face open. Then he uses these glasses that have on and he puts them on her face. He cuts her up, cuts Aaron Carter's arm, and somehow Aaron Carter's able to push him off. But even though his arm got cut with the chainsaw, his arm would have fallen off and that shit. So then he splits Aaron Carter in half, ass up. Oh, well. And afterwards, he does that. What's that shit called when you do angel wings in the snow? Does that with both their blood. So then we cut to Sienna. She wakes up and goes downstairs. And she thinks that her aunt and uncle are talking shit about her. But it's really Vicky mimicking their voices. Both Art and Vicky are there. We see multiple bodies. Greg was killed off screen, which is wild because the Damien Leone I know would have shown the entire kill. I guess he's like, well, we gotta cut 10 minutes somehow. So Sienna and her aunt get tied up. Her aunt looks like Jamie King with Neve Campbell's scalp on her head with these goofy ass bangs. So they show this skull and apparently it's Gabby, but Jess refuses to believe them. Then Art and Vicky shove this tube down Jess's throat. She gets these rats inside her throat and they use a blowtorch for the rats to go down there, and then they slit her throat open. Then we see Vicky tell Sienna that the skull is actually not Gabby's, that it's actually Jonathan's, which I guess it's Jonathan's. Who knows? I mean, they did kill the dad of Gabby, but who knows if they actually killed Jonathan. I mean, maybe they did. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw how they killed Jonathan and Greg in the next movie, because knowing Damien Leone, he has to pad out the runtime. So obviously Sienna is in agony, and during this time we see Vicky trying to possess Sienna, but it doesn't work out. I have no idea how. It doesn't make any sense. This makes Vicky believe that it'll work if they kill Gabby, so they bring Gabby out. But before that happens, Gabby tells them, why don't you let Sienna open her present first? So they do let her open the present, but Art breaks both of her hands and she somehow is able to open it. And of course, it's the sword from the last movie. What's funny is that this sword looks so fucking cheap. It looks like they got it at the bargain bin at Five Below. But of course, this sword is like King Arthur's sword. It can take down Art the Clown and whatever demon's in her way. So Sienna frees herself. She kills Vicky. She chops her head off. She stabs her. All that shit. And then when she tries to finish off Art, Vicky's blood somehow melts through the floor like acid, and it opens a portal to hell. And Gabby falls in. And it's so fucking goofy when Sienna tries to save Gabby. She uses a sword and it's so goofy. Why? You could have saved her, but oh well. You guys set a cliffhanger for the next movie. The portal closes. Art disappears. Sienna heals somehow, I guess from the sword. And she's like, I'll rescue you, Gabby. And then we see Art go on this bus and he sees this woman. And there's like this random scene. We see this woman reading this book on the bus, and the bus driver's like, I'm not really into horror movies, I'm really into rom-coms or some stupid shit like that. And then Art gets on the bus and he honks the horn and he does this creepy ass smile, obviously implying that he's gonna kill them both. The end. Oh god. So yeah, this movie, I don't know if I like it more than the last one. I really didn't like the last one. Go listen to that review on Apple and Spotify. The only thing I could say about this movie that's different from the last one is that it's way shorter. I'm just joking. It's only 10 minutes shorter. And honestly, like I said, it could have been 40 minutes shorter. The whole first act could have been cut out. It really could have just started with Sienna getting out of Arkham Asylum, and then she's like, oh shit, Art's still alive. But no, of course, Damien Leone is on all the coke in the world. This movie's still almost 2 hours and 10 minutes. Like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing? What I will say about this movie is you could tell that it has a bigger budget. The special effects look way better in this movie than they have in the last two. Like, the last one, it looked so cheap. It looked so fake in the last one. This one, it looks more realistic. It still looks pretty fake, but At least this one, I'm like, oh, at least it's a little bit more believable. I was sitting still in my seat, bored throughout the movie, because I thought that the little kills were so boring. Like, okay, wow, you ripped his face off. Okay. At least do some more dynamic kills. What didn't make sense to me was that Damien Leone was trying to be subtle. Like, the kill of that little boy, the first scene in the movie. Oh, now you're subtle? We're gonna hear his kill, but you're not gonna show it? Okay, I guess. What else? I mean, just the acting, I still think is pretty bad. Sienna, she tries her best, but she's really not a good actress. The best actor in the movie, obviously, it's still Art the Clown. It's not even close. I guess Vicky would be second, but obviously, Art is the best actor in this movie, and it's not even close. The only thing I have to say about this movie is that it's way too fucking long. It should have been, like I said, 40 minutes shorter. I saw people on Twitter saying that the pacing is better in this movie. Like, what? Just because it's 10 minutes shorter? Like, what are we talking about? I swear, some of these people on Twitter, they must have a different cut of the movie than I'm watching, or they're just lying to themselves, or they're not paying attention to the movie. Because how are you going to say this movie, which is almost 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and say it has better pacing than the last one? It's only 10 minutes of difference. It's still too fucking long. Would I recommend this movie? If you're a fan of Art the Clown, then yes, I would recommend you watching it. If you're not really into Art the Clown, then obviously do not watch it. You'll probably walk out like the people who walked out in the first 20 minutes. The funniest thing I saw about this movie was when the guy that was sitting in front of me kept jumping up anytime Art the Clown killed somebody. I thought that was so funny. Why are you jumping so hard? You already know what's gonna happen. I don't know how you're jumping so hard over these kills. It makes no sense. It's not like Art came out of the shadows. He's like, woo. It was just so funny. Another positive I would give this movie is the cinematography. It does look like a movie from the 80s. Not as much as like Ty West movie would do, literally recreating a movie from the 80s. But the cinematography looks decent. The sound is really bad. It's always been bad. I still don't get it. Some people say the sound is good. I guess they're deaf. When the actors' lines are being recorded, the whole movie sounds like they're in a bathroom and you can hear all the other sound in the room. The writing is absolutely horrible. The story makes no fucking sense, especially with this goofy ass story with Sienna and Art, that she's the chosen one and that her father made this sword and it could defeat Art the Clown. Like, what are we talking about? They should have just kept it simple like the first movie. They should have never ripped off Vicky's face. They should have just made her the actual protagonist of the entire series, not Sienna, who's basically Vicky adjacent. I mean, they look pretty similar. They both look Italian. They both have black hair. It's just so weird. It's like Damien Leone's fetish on screen. Hopefully, the next movie's better. I mean, that's what I said about the last movie. Apparently, the next few movies are going to be shorter. Imagine if the next movie's like 2.5 hours. Like, how much coke do you have to be on to make any slasher movie to be 2.5 hours, for fuck's sake? But yeah, that's all I have to say about this movie. I would rate it the same as I did the last movie, 3 out of 10, maybe 3.5 or 4. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That's all I gotta say.